Hey guys, and welcome to the Kurima podcast where we talk about business, finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate. I'm your host, Jason Kurima, and I have a very special guest today, Bob Berger. Bob, it's great to have you on our show today.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah. So Bob is the original founder of Wintech, and he's done a lot of other business ventures, and I just want to kind of dive into your story and how you got started. In the early days, we were kind of talking about how you kind of just dove in and you were talking to an accountant about starting a business and asking them questions and networking with people. So how did that get started? Kind of give me that process for you.
All right, good. So my wife and I had been living in Monett since 1981, and we'll get back to those years later in your podcast here. But I need to make a change. I've been working for FCO for 10 years. Need to do something different. That's a whole nother story. But and so as you said, I walked into one of the partners of BKD out of Joplin that day because another employee, I went to church with him, and he had set up the appointment, and walked in, and the guy said, "Well, what do you want?" And my wife and I said, "We're thinking about starting a business. What do you think?" And that's kind of financially how it all started. And it was, with that came, you know how often these things fail, and how much money do you have, and that kind of thing. But that's how the idea for Wintech financially started. Wintech was started by three families: Bob and Debbie Berger, Lonnie and Erlene Dunn, and Gary and Carla Rickman. All people of faith, and all people that I'd gone to church with, or I knew professionally, and that kind of thing. And it worked out very well. I was the financial, the engineering, the design kind of guy. Carla Rickman was a tough-nosed office manager. And Lonnie Dunn was a great shop guy in terms of the operations, and if I could put it on paper, he could build it. So that's awesome. Wintech, the unique thing about Monett, Missouri, where we are, is at one time it had 5 window companies. It's always been sort of a magnet for that type of manufacturing. Once you have one, it's easy for another couple of them. There's offshoots, that kind of thing. So the problem was competition. And when you're so close to the guy down the street, you can waste a lot of emotional energy just trying to steal employees from each other, suing each other, all those things that are non-productive. And Wintech had kind of a unique sales and marketing plan, and that was, if the other guy in town did it, we didn't. There's always something else that we could find to do.
So you found like niches?
Exactly. We were a niche manufacturer. And very briefly, window manufacturers, there's two. There's high volume residential manufacturers, and there's custom manufacturers. And what we were looking for, products that did not appeal to either of them. Products that required fast turnaround. You had to have a stock. You delivered that product in a week, so you had to have a lot of inventory on hand. But it wasn't a big enough product to attract the attention of the high-volume residential guys that will kill you for 50 cents a window. They'll do it 50 cents cheaper than you. And it was something like the custom people like FCO weren't interested in. It wasn't big enough, again, for them to want to invest all their engineering and put a lot of inventory in to react quickly. When we could find that niche, we serviced them well. We actually made friends with our customers, a lot of very good friendships, and we made money. Wintech was very profitable.
Yeah, sounds like you guys were very personal with your customers, and I feel like for me, customer service has always been really important with our companies.
I love to fish. I spent a lot of money fishing during the Wintech years, and taking customers that became very good friends as a result.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned faith earlier. How important is faith whenever you're starting a business? Like your faith in God and.
So I had made a note down here that things are important. Faith, family, and friends.
Yeah.
For me, my relationship with Jesus Christ is everything, and I mean that's where I started. That's where I'll end. And so you just put yourself in perspective with that. You're not as important as you think you are, and with a good wife and a good God, they both kind of keep you in check. So I can't stress how important to the whoever's listening to this, whether you're 15 or 25 or 45 or 65 or 85, you got to know who your God is.
Yep. Amen to that. I mean, I feel like it's like starting a business is hard, but man, like you need God. Like even if you aren't trying to start a business, God is so important. Like you need someone like that, no matter what, you can rely on. And like God has definitely been there for me through all the ups and downs and everything. So
I can see it on your walls here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we did that I thought we'd get a lot of like flack for it. We put Bibles in all of our phone stores, and our customers can kind of flip through it and highlight verses and stuff. And at first, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I love this." But I always thought someone would come in and throw a fit about it. And we've been open for like 6 years, and we've never had anyone say anything negative about it. One of the cool stories is someone was cussing. They weren't mad at us. They just had bad language. And they were cussing, and then they saw the Bible, and they were like, oops. And then they just stopped cussing. So that was kind of a cool experience. So
You're a Gideon. Yeah, is what you are. Yeah. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. So earlier we were talking, and you said that you have a civil engineering background, right? So where did you go to college? Can you kind of give me some context about that?
I was raised in the Midwest in Ohio, and when I was coming out of high school, it was just after Vietnam, and but they were passing out ROTC scholarships left and right, so it was easy. I got a Navy ROTC scholarship. Gave me a chance to go to pretty much anywhere I wanted to go. So I went to Purdue in Indiana, and so I met my wife. And you got to pick a major. Well, I decided I'm being an engineer, and you had asked, what would you want to do? I wanted to work outside at that time. I thought I don't want to be sitting here like you and I are right now. I want an outside job. At one time, I was interested in forestry. And so at Purdue, at the end of the first year, you got to pick which one of the engineers you want to be. And I thought, oh my gosh. I picked civil engineering because they build dams and bridges. I thought that would keep me outside. Just, how naive some of the decisions in life are that we make.
Yeah.
That didn't put me outside at all. But it was good for me. I'm a good numbers guy. I ended up with a bachelor's and a master's degree in structural engineering. And then had 4 years in the Navy, defended the beaches of Hawaii for you. I did a darn good job. There was not an invasion while I was there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. That's awesome.
And then through a headhunter, I found a place called Monett, Missouri. We had to get out the atlas to figure out where Monett, Missouri was. And I was hired by Chris and Terry Fulner in 1981 to run the engineering department of EFCO, which was at about $20 million a year back then. And walked into Terry Fulner's office during the interview process, and he had this big old bass and walleye mounted on the back of his wall. I go, "Did you catch those here?" He goes, "Sure did, boy. Caught them in the same day in Table Rock Lake." I said, "Well, I think I'm in the right place." And really enjoyed that experience. That was 10 fun years. I call that the glory years of EFCO. We took that company from actually under 20 million to about 135 million or something like that in those 10 years. It was fast. We were fast and loose in what we were doing back then. So that's how I got started. And then said, need to make a change, and should have moved to some other city and gone to work for another window company instead. The three families got together. We hawked everything we owned first time, and then found some more stuff we owned to hawk. As when after a year, when we figured we need more cash, and we were really blessed. I mean, that first summer, things could have turned left instead of right, and we wouldn't have made it.
No.
But company grew pretty fast. After about 2 years, there was a lot more comfort in what we were doing, and started to find these niches, as we talked about before. tucked in among the window business and that kind of thing across the country. And Wintech is now pushing $40 million
Wow.
a year in sales,
Awesome.
under some really great leadership. So I'm really proud of those guys. I started in '91. We sold it to the employees. It's 100% ESOP sale, 100% employee stock ownership program. In '06, unfortunately, there was a recession in '08. I didn't think about how long I was going to work. I didn't think I was going to work that long, but I had to stick around. And finally, I had some good people in place, and then finally retired in 2014. I do sit on the board, and they asked me, "Do you want to stay there?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I want to stay there. You can wheel me in a wheelchair. I'll still be here. I'm going to be your conscience for a lot of years." So I enjoy that. 4 times a year, no other responsibilities. 4 times a year, going in there and picking away at them as to what they're doing. So
That's funny.
yeah.
So, what was behind the decision making of switching it over to 100% ESOP?
That's a good question. At that time in the 2004 to 6 range, my one partner had some health issues and was going to need to retire. We thought it'd be a good time to cash it out. So BKD, Forbes at that time, introduced me to some different people, and a typical equity kind of buyer. They seemed to be pretty good. We had a letter of intent, and he came down just to kind of see how things were going as we were starting to put the paperwork together. And we had a little bit of a blip, a month that wasn't so good. And he sat across the table from me like you, and he goes, "Well, gee, Bob, that's just disappointing, those results." And I looked at him, and I thought, I didn't say it, but I thought, I don't want to work for you for the next 3 years. I worked so hard to build this business, and I don't want to be put back in that position to have somebody go, "That's disappointing, Bob." So the guy was a great guy, but and he could not believe I pulled out of that. I never was really honest with him, that comment just totally destroyed my idea what was going to happen. And so my accountant, guy by the Mike Gray. Mike Gray is a partner with Forbes. I think I've known him when he might have been in grade school when I first met him. I don't know. But anyway, he then said, "Why don't you think about an ESOP?" And I said, "What the heck's an ESOP?" It's employee stock ownership plan. The federal and state government likes this divesting of ownership from one person to, in theory, to all the employees. And so ESOPs did not pay any taxes, did not pay any federal or state taxes. And so there's a lot of legal work involved in all that, and it's hard to sell the idea to the employees. But employees end up with no legal obligation for those shares of stock, but they basically can ride the value of that share of stock from initial strike price, and then at their retirement age, they get the difference between it. So the initial stock price was in the $1.40 range for Wintech. It's over $30 a share right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
And if anybody's played in the stock market, it's hard to find a return like that.
So that was from 2006, right? That's when it was $1.40.
2006 it was sold. It was I owner financed the whole thing. The bank didn't want to touch it.
Okay.
And myself and the other partners were totally paid off. And as I said, I retired in 2014.
Okay. So why did you say that it was difficult for the employees to get on board with doing the ESOP?
An employee, when he wants to buy a pickup truck, he's got to pay for that pickup truck. And even though he may have $100,000 in share value, that's not helping him. Mm-hmm. And Wintech will have an employee leave and go down the street and go to work for somebody else that's paying 50 cents an hour more, because that's his paycheck at the end of the week. It is hard. It is a hard thing to educate someone to see the value of what they have, not today, but in the future.
Yeah. A lot of people are very like today oriented. They're not long term. So,
Or that guy will quit so that he can cash out his ESOP so he can buy that pickup truck. You know, it's some people get it real quick. The 18-year-old coming out of high school right now, which a few months ago, Wintech would have hired 20 people on the spot. Labor market, Southwest Missouri, terrible. You know, it's a little bit better now, but they may hire that 20 by the end of the week, and half of them don't make it a week because I have to work. I got to be here. I got to be here at what time? And I mean, I can't. I got something I can't leave. It's the work ethic is. It's easy for me to see since I'm retired, but it's not what it used to be, and it really takes some effort on the employer to sift through, cultivate, and grow their employees.
So you may not know this, but in a lot of my Facebook posts and all these posts that I do, I talk about believe in yourself as like one of my hashtags. So to me, it's like everyone needs to believe in themselves because everyone has a dream. Everyone has something they want to accomplish in life. But if they don't believe in themselves, they're not going to take the action necessary to accomplish it. So what does believe in yourself mean to you?
You had given me a sheet to take a look at, and I thought about that one for a while. That's interesting because I guess I do believe in myself, but I hadn't thought about it that much. And I sort of broke it down into, first of all, prepare for what's in front of you. If you have a challenge or you have something that's a goal before you, prepare. Prepare for that. Prepare in terms of education and surrounding yourself with people, financially. Get ready, and then go. And don't look back. I mean, don't be afraid. Your path is always going to veer a little bit, but if you've prepared for what's in front of you, then go. Yeah. And my wife will tell you maybe sometimes I push too hard. Sometimes don't give up very easy, but that's probably one of the stronger points of my personality. I put my head down and go, and don't look back. Yeah. I mean, I've run 10 marathons in my life and that kind of thing, and that's what that's all about. Put your head down and go. So,
yeah. That's awesome. So, whenever you set your goals, how do you set them? Do you set like long-term goals? Do you set short-term goals? How do you structure that typically?
That's also a good question. I mean, there's a lot of short-term goals. I'm retired, but I juggle a lot of things. Right now, even at this age, long-term goals just sort of appeared before me. I didn't decide I was going to build a $30 million business. I needed a job, is what it was at that time. The vision was a lot less than that. So I'd never been one of these people that decided, I want a museum. I'm going to go, we can talk about this a little bit later. I'm going to take 3 buildings downtown and make it turn into a museum. An interesting thing, I've described it, I have a very good wife. I've described her as the success of her and I together. It's her vision and my money.
Yeah.
I've been able to make the money, and a lot of our family things and a lot of the stuff that's happened here in downtown Monett has been her vision. So I'll turn that around. I'll give her a credit for some of the long-term stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like my wife always does all the interior design. I feel like I have a pretty good idea on what to do on our flips and stuff, but like she makes everything look so much better by just like the way how creative she is and how she sets everything up. I think she just makes everything we do a lot more successful because of what she does. So I'm really thankful to have her.
I do remind my wife constantly, I made that money, You can spend it, but I made it.
Yeah, that's true. So what is one or a few of your goals that you currently have?
Yeah, again, that's interesting. So I'm retired, and I told you it took a little bit of time to get used to retirement because every day was Saturday, and I was trying, and my job kept me, kept me on pace. So I guess I would say my goals at this point in time is to balance my life between family, faith, my church, and then I still have a passion for the city of Monett, downtown Monett. Spent a lot of time, effort, a lot of money, a lot of personal money in trying to get downtown Monett over the hump in terms of it being a natural business incubator where people look at it and they say, oh, there's the potential there. Real value, real estate goes up. People want to invest in downtown Monett. It's not there now. COVID hurt us and set us back. And so that's three things. And the last thing is of balance is play. I like to play. I own a lot of stuff. A lot of my time is spent maintaining my stuff. I have 2 UTVs. A lot of people would like to have one. I have 2, and they're both broken right now. I love to fish. I mentioned to you earlier, and you just looked puzzled at me. I grow orchids. People go, "What?" Yeah, I'm an orchid grower. I got bit by that bug back in the '80s. Stationed in Hawaii, member of the Springfield Orchid Society, and I have orchids. I have a house in Florida, in the Florida Keys. I have orchids down there growing remotely. I have orchids here in Monett growing, so I enjoy that. And my biggest challenge right now, this is big, all right, is I told you I'm a fisherman. I bought some property, and I've built a quarter-mile trout stream, all right? Oh, wow. It's wonderful. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, except I can't keep trout in it. We could talk a long time about that, but we won't. They disappear as fast as I buy them. So anyway.
Well, that stinks. How have you grown over the years, and is there something that makes you more successful than you used to be?
I thought about that too. I mean, as you grow older, all of a sudden you still think, I still feel like I'm 16, but I'm not, what I jotted down there is I think I have more patience than I had before. Maybe instead of that go attitude, I'll look a little bit more before I go. So just a little more patience to wait on some things. I'm not a good waiter, but to wait on some things, maybe a little bit more preparation. But that's how I'd answer that question.
Yeah. So are you saying like you used to be go, and now you kind of prepare more? Like a lot of times, would you just go after something without fully preparing for it?
I would definitely go after things that were way out there. Okay, yeah. Kind of a reach. I still go after things, but I think there's less risk.
Yeah.
I've always been a risk taker, and that bugs my family and my wife at times. But so with that patience, maybe another way of describing it, maybe a little less risk in terms. Yeah. In terms of what I do.
But I think it's a good quality to have because it got you to where you are, right? Like I'm kind of the same way. I'm very like go after it, take the big risks. But I think it's worked well for me, and I think it's worked well for you as well.
No matter what, you have to be a risk taker. You have to have a level of risk that you're comfortable with. I've always had a high level of risk in terms of my investments and that kind of thing. But unless you're willing to go out there and take some risks, normally these things aren't going to fall in your lap.
Yep, I agree. What is one or maybe a few of your favorite business books? Or any books, maybe personal development? Or...
When I read this, I went, I don't read. I put none. But I will say, guy by the name of Jack Stack. I don't know if you're
Yep.
familiar with Jack in
SRC
in Springfield. I think this goes back to the 80s, maybe the 90s. He wrote a book, I think it's called The Great Game of Business.
Yep.
And basically what he did is he started sharing all of the things that would normally be behind closed doors among an executive group with all the employees, all the way down to the janitor, and getting them to buy into it. And I embraced that very quickly. And at Wintech, we shared everything, the good and the bad, as far as the numbers go. And Wintech today has taken that, under the leadership of Jack Williams, has taken that to a new level, even in terms of people trying to stay ahead of what do you think the month's going to be? What do you think the share value of the stock's going to be? And so I appreciate that. That's important that kind of leadership embraces that. But so that book, that philosophy back there has probably had the most effect on me in terms of business. Unfortunately, and this is not a good quality, I'm not a reader. Not that kind of stuff anyway.
Gotcha. So have you always had a board, or when did you first get a board for Wintech?
Well, you always have a board. I mean, as a formality, you had to have a board, but it was the three families, husband and wives, and but as soon as we adopted the ESOP in 2006, then we got serious about the board, and have some very good people, local people. We have some SRC people for a while. Some financial, some human resources, and beginning within particularly last, since I've been retired, I see the value of that board, where rather than it being, it's a social obligation for me to be on a board in Monett. That's, I'm at the level, that's what I'm expected to do, to have people that have talents and are willing to take a hard look at what's going on a day-to-day basis, spend a little bit more of their own personal time than 4 times a year. That kind of person can be a big value to the board moving forward. Yeah. And I really I started out as the chairman of the board, the vice chairman of the board, and it's not appropriate for me to have that role now in terms of my age and what I'm doing. But I just really like what Wintech's done with their board and the development of it.
Okay. So have you ever had any pushback from a board? With Wintech, were you ever in a position where you really wanted to go through with something and you weren't able to because the board was pushing back? And something you'd be comfortable to say, I don't know.
I know. We could talk about this a lot. But in the 2016 range, the board needed to make a change of the president of the company. And that was a painful thing. And it was not a unanimous consent of the board in the beginning this should be done. Again, board members are, you want me to do what? I'm here to help, but I'm not here to cause problems for somebody. And that's a difficult thing to do. So there was some tough year, and at this point in time, I was riding a bicycle across the United States. I rode a bicycle from California to Florida.
Holy cow!
And I would sit down wherever we stopped in a pool with my laptop, not plugged in, but my laptop, trying to find out if I had legs left and trying to see what was the latest problem, as to how we were handling things. That was a difficult time in 2016, and a difficult situation for the board at that time.
Mm-hmm. So how would you, I guess you don't have to make it specific to that, but if you have a problem, a big problem that you have to overcome, what ways would you suggest handling it?
At a board level,
Yeah.
communication. You got to have a lot of open communication, which is even in today's technology age. These people are all over the place. They got day jobs. They got families. It's hard to pin them down. It's hard to get a commitment out of them that they're willing to vote for something that is not well received, by everyone. So, but communication is trying to maintain communication when you have a situation like that is very important.
Yeah. I know you're in retirement, but is there anything that you want to do, but you're scared to go after it?
No.
No.
At my point, I own too many houses, too many things. I need to get rid of some things. is what I need. That's what my wife would say. No, I'm not scared of anything. But I'm trapped. Other people will know what I'm talking about. Don't be trapped by your play toys. Don't get trapped by that stuff.
Yeah, I have a mentor that talked about how a lot of times it's better to not have that stuff or to rent it, enjoy it for a little bit, and then give it back. Then you don't have to worry about the upkeep and the maintenance and all the headache.
Let me go back to that question because I was thinking about that when I was driving and scared. So I'm 69 years old, and I felt bulletproof well into my 60s. And now I'm not. I had my knee replacement. I can't run anymore, And so, if there's anything that scares me is I don't want to, and my wife's a little bit the same way. I don't want to be a burden to my kids as I age.
Yeah.
That's not that I'm afraid to do that. Give back to them something that we endured from my kids, growing up. But that. I just hope that's not an issue. But I become a burden because of a medical situation to my family. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone that really wants to succeed in life and in business that's maybe just starting out? Like, what would you tell them that they need to do or work on?
Hone your craft, all right? You have some talent. Maybe it's education you got. Maybe it's work experience. Know what you're good at. Everybody's good at something. You don't have to have a PhD in finance to start a business, okay? You don't have to go to college to start a business. But you got to figure out what your talents are and hone those, number one. Next, if you're going to start a business, you have to surround yourself with good people. Nobody is, Jason, I'm sure you would agree with this. Nobody makes it all happen purely on their own talents and their own energy and their own money. All right, you have to surround yourself with good people, and then you have to have money. Don't go into a business thinking, that money will show up. Aunt Bertha, she's got some money. I bet she'll give me some if I need it. Most businesses fail, not necessarily because they weren't successful, it's because they ran out of cash. Cash flow is very difficult in the first couple of years. And once that becomes an issue, then things cease to operate, and the dominoes start to fall. So I would not recommend, if you're starting your first business, that you're highly in debt with credit cards and mortgages and car payments and that kind of thing. You need to be as debt-free as practical and understand what your sources of financing are, what's available to you. But hone your craft, figure out what you're going to do, do something you know something about. Don't decide you watch something on TV and I bet I could do that. No, you have you've got talents over the years that you're good at, some industry that you're good at. Flipping houses, you understand construction, or you understand manufacturing, you understand finance. Stay in something you know something about, and go from there.
So what, like for me, I started with about $800 on our first phone repair store. How much did you guys start with to start your first business, or to start Wintech?
That's a good question. We need a couple $100,000, but I had a debt-free cabin on Table Rock Lake. I hocked that. Most of the other people took out some second mortgages on houses. And so, we put up a good chunk of cash. And then at that point, we worked with Darren Newbold and what was CMB Bank. And he goes, well, we can always own your property. And, if this doesn't work. And again, a local banker is a good thing, because they sometimes look beyond some of the obvious straight ratios and numbers and that kind of thing. So CMB Bank, which is now Freedom Bank, was a big help to us. But we hawked everything, and it's kind of like my wife said, okay, that happens. The bank will take it, and we'll move somewhere. And my wife started teaching. My wife got a teaching job 25 years after the day she graduated from college. She was a stay-at-home mom, but we needed the money when we started a business. So, everybody got involved. My kids to this day complain about how they work for nothing, building windows in the beginning, or 50 cents an hour, whatever it was I paid them. And it's like they never let me forget that. So it was a family commitment. But then we had to go back to the bank for more money. Just
keep growing.
To keep the cash moving. At about 18 months or so.
And how many kids do you have?
I have three. I have 3 kids, and if depending on how you count them, I have 4 grandkids. So.
Now, what legacy do you want to leave?
Oh boy, that's a good one. I want to be remembered as a man of faith. Okay, and I hope I am. I do my best. I'll be remembered as a good Gramps. Okay, I'm Gramps. That's
your name.
That's what I am. Yeah. And my wife and I think we would like to be remembered as they helped downtown become what it is now, whatever that now is, whether it's 5 years from now or 50 years from now. They go, yeah, the Bergers helped, downtown Monett to become something other than a ghost town, So.
And I think you did a great job with that. That is a legacy in itself. So.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about the museum and Mocha Joe's. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was still heavily involved with Wintech, and again, this is my wife's vision. And these people came in and said, we're going to form a group for downtown called Monett Main Street, and there is a federal program called Downtown Main Street, and then you go in and you become Monett Main Street or Joplin Main Street or whatever. And so my wife and I attend the initial meeting. Next thing you know, we're committee chairman. And that led to my wife has always loved the coffee shop environment, and at the time, so youth ministers in town were looking for a facility because we had a kid problem. This is before the YMCA, Monett. We had a kid problem in downtown Monett. So we ended up buying a building on 4th Street, and there's a nonprofit upstairs called The Den, which area youth ministers were involved with. And then we put in this coffee shop downstairs. I never washed more dishes in my life, That's what they let me do. And we lost thousands of dollars a year doing that, but think of the volume. It was something we went into not to make money, but Monett had been very good to us, and it was an opportunity to give something back. So we ran. My wife, she did most of the work. I was the maintenance man, and then once the YMCA was up and running, that's where the kids went, and that was a natural progression. So the den shut down, and we continued to run Mocha Joe's. In that process, there's a couple other buildings at the end of 4th Street that were just deteriorating to the point where beautiful old bank building, and it just was not going to last much longer. And so I was able to contact the owners of 2 adjacent buildings, and we bought that building. And we were going to put maybe a nice restaurant downtown, loft apartments upstairs. And one day, my wife sat down at lunch with Gail Huffmaster in Monett, founder of Huffmaster Insurance. And Monett Historical Society was looking for a place for a museum. It was going to build a ugly metal building. And my wife said, we got a deal for you. And as I was talking to you earlier, we ended up with Casey Architecture out of Springfield, who was an expert in this field, doing a historical renovation of that building. And that means you have to take it back to an era. And we basically took that building back to its 1908 era or so. And it's done with a lot of photographs and that kind of thing. It's a very expensive process. I was telling you earlier, I would never do it again. It inflated the cost of the project 40-50% over what you could have normally done. But it's a very beautiful building. It has an original turret on it. Every mortar joint of that building was ground out and retuck pointed.
Wow.
Not 10 of them or 100,000 of them, every one of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so it was quite a deal. Now there was you and I were talking before. There are some federal and state tax credits. Yeah, but it didn't cover the cost of what was done. So we, after 5 years, we donated. My wife and I donated that building to Historical Society last year, and so hopefully that works out well for them. They got a great facility. A museum in downtown Monett is second to none.
It's very nice
in Southwest Missouri. We're currently in a dilemma, because that's how I met you, with Mocha Joe's. We tried several times for somebody to take over Mocha Joe's with their eyes wide open, because it's difficult for a small restaurant venue like that to make any money. Yep. And Life 360 was coming to town, which is faith-based nonprofit out of Springfield, and they were heavily involved in giving meals to schools at that time. And they wanted to outreach for the community, and so for $1 a year, we let them take over the Mocha Joe's. Well, that just unfortunately came to an end last week. They no longer have a presence in Monett, and that didn't make sense for them to continue to lose even more money than we did. So Mocha Joe's closed down last week, and it's interesting. People have come out of the woodwork. That's how I met you. With, what are you going to do with it, that kind of thing. So I have no answer to that today, other than I'm taking you over and showing you the building right after this. I got another group coming in later this afternoon, going to take a look. I do have an interest of maybe putting 3 loft apartments upstairs. There's several. The Monett Main Street is kind of pushing that at this point in time. There's a lot of vacant upstairs property downtown, and so you're just starting to see some nice apartments being done. And I think that might help stimulate other growth in downtown Monett.
Yeah, and I think you can't really go wrong doing apartments. I mean, that's really my niche that I'm trying to get into more, is focus on apartments. Like, we have a lot of flips. We have 9 apartments, and I've got another 9 under contract, but we really want to scale that up. So.
Great. Yeah. I know where there's some good buildings.
So how can people connect with you if they want to maybe meet you or, something?
Anybody can give me a call. right now, my wife has taken over the Mocha Joe's Facebook page again.
Okay.
And so if anybody had any contacting her, you can contact through Facebook. My phone number, go over the phone number, is 417-235-4824. And my email is Berger, Berger, 2035 @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Be glad to talk with anybody about anything, particularly if somebody knows how to keep trout in their trout stream. I'm interested in that.
Now, do you have a final message for our audience?
No, I mean, I enjoyed the invite to come down. I guess you put my whole life in perspective here, in the last hour. I've never actually sat down and with somebody and in this type of venue did this kind of thing. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the invite to do that.
Well, thank you.
I would, again, I'm talking to maybe a broader audience, but I have a passion for the city of Monett and this downtown area, to what it was for 100 years, what it became, quite frankly, when the Walmart was built in the 80s and sucked everything out to Business 60, to what it can become. And there's a lot of success stories of these towns, these downtown areas in Southwest Missouri. Wherever you are, I bet you're not far from a situation just like that. It might be your own hometown, or it might be one down the road. There's a lot of opportunity for family, faith, and friends to be able to enjoy that type of stuff right in your downtown, the way it used to be in my case, for my parents and my grandparents.
Well, thank you guys for watching the Kurima podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. God bless you guys.